So hello, this is Frederick Dunn, and we're taking a look out the backyard this time of year, November the 11th. A year ago at this time, we had snow everywhere. And if you look at the environment in the background, there's no more pollen, there's no more nectar, but what we do have is a surplus of foragers in the apiary. So normally on a warm day like this, which by the way it hit 62 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 17 Celsius, the bees forage. When they can't find what they need, they follow the path of least resistance, and generally that can be another hive of bees, and they'll raid a colony and rob them out. So robbing pressure right now is very high. So what's that yellow substance right there? That is Ultra-Bee Dry Pollen Substitute for Man Lake. It is on egg cartons because I find that egg cartons allow the bees to get their footing really well. Now these bees have not forgotten the scent of Dry Pollen Sub, because I walked out the back door of my garage carrying a bucket that had no lid, and I wasn't 20 feet across the yard when I was being followed by a bunch of hungry foragers. So they were diving into the bucket before I can even use the ladle and scoop out a couple of pounds here, which is all it really is. It looks like a lot because we're close and we're shooting in slow motion. But why would I do that? I don't feed Dry Pollen Sub inside the hives. I also don't feed liquid syrup inside the hives this time of year because it's going to get cold. Snow's going to hit. Today we're going to have a lot of wind. But what this does is give those foragers something to do. See, they have the pollen packs on their hind legs, but it's not pollen at all. Remember, it's a substitute, not as good as what they would get from flowers, but there's no flowers, remember, so it's a substitute. Not as nutritionally fantastic as actual pollen from flowers, but we're doing a couple of things here. We're giving them some protein so they can, use it on a little bit of brood that they might have this time of year. It is not going to kick off a big brood boost, which is not what we really want in winter. All I want to do is occupy these foragers. Give them something to do besides rob their neighbor. So aside from the Dry Pollen Sub, which is working great, we're going to get high winds today, so I'm going to try to get some slow motion video of the foragers fighting the wind, and of course the Dry Pollen Sub blowing in their little faces. But you can see how they groom off the pollen, get it all over their hairs, groom it back to their corbicula, their hind legs. They get the pollen balls on there and they fly back. There were bees in this pile, had developed balls, and were headed back in less than 5 minutes. But what about the nectar? There's no nectar in the environment. So here's the other part. This is Pro Sweet, and I put it out in these clear 32-ounce bottles that I found on Amazon. They're like $1 a piece, dirt cheap. And then the feeder base comes from another new inventor here that is selling their feeders, and I'll put a link so you can learn more about that. But rather than the dark green bottles that came with that, I use these clear ones just so I can see what's going on. And Pro Sweet, again, is just like the consistency of honey. So when they go out and get this carbohydrate and bring it back, they'll be able to consume it straight away. So again, this isn't going to boost, stored resources in the hive very much because this is open feeding. All I'm trying to do is divert would-be robbers from attacking their neighbors and instead giving them something that they can focus on, fill their honey crops with, and take it back. Look at that little bubble going up just like an old bottle of Prel concentrate shampoo. And you see a little wasp there on the right side, and there goes a wasp flying. It's going to go right to the left of the screen carrying a fly. So they're still getting protein in the environment. So cut down on some robbing in your backyard apiary, and maybe put some Dry Pollen Sub out if you have it. If you don't, you might want to get it because it'll help you in spring. There isn't strong evidence that Dry Pollen Sub will boost colony health going into winter, but there is evidence that it will boost their health and expand in spring before resources are available again. So thanks for watching Pro Sweet and Ultra-Bee Dry Pollen Sub.